Cool. I think we're getting it. So,
We are live. Well, we're
yes.
recording.
Hello, future selves. Hello, grandkids. If this still exists on the internet, or if it ever makes it there one day. Um, yeah, here with Josh, dude. So great to see you.
Yeah, it's so great to connect.
I was thinking to kind of get us in the flow state for questions and diving in. Who and what inspires you nowadays? Like a certain person that comes to mind, whether it be someone in your close vicinity, um, feeling that inspirational energy. Like, is it someone online, like a mentor, or someone maybe close to you that brings out that inspirational energy?
You know, I have a lot of like online mentors that I like to follow that inspire me. Names that come to mind are Aubrey Marcus and Paul
Oof.
Check and Certified Health Nut. Those guys inspire me a lot. But lately, my girlfriend Dana has been inspiring me a lot. She's a painter. She does like fine art. She channels people's higher selves and spirit guides and captures it in painting. So, and she's been having that pick up more. So she's been inspiring me a lot lately.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's lovely. I saw a couple pieces of content on the Twin Flame, which,
Yeah.
what a blessing.
Mm-hmm. Such a blessing. It's a rocky ride, but it's worth it. Totally worth it.
Right. I was just watching something before we hopped on here. I think it was you guys talking. I haven't met Dana, but how just those deep, close relationships expose the things that you have intended to. All those traumas, all whatever's hasn't been completed is going to get kind of bumped up against. And I'm grateful to be in a twin flame relationship right now, partner.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and all those things they get nudged on, and it's so great to have all these tools and know people like you that are putting out content and tools to actually handle energy.
Yeah. And it's so wild. Like what comes to mind with the whole twin flame thing is I think it's so beautiful because it's like they're a perfect mirror for your soul. And it's like it's a perfect connection for like your light, but it's also a perfect connection for your darkness. Like I know, like without going into too much detail, but I remember like when we first started living together, when we first started like being together a lot, it was very much like our light was fitting together perfectly, but like also our traumas were perfect complements. And I think the distinction to be made here is a lot of people say, oh, that's just an unhealthy codependent relationship. But an unhealthy codependent relationship is when you don't feel whole within yourself and then you go try to find someone to fill that gap. But a twin flame is when you already feel whole within yourself and then two whole people come together and then those traumas just come up because there's certain containers where you heal things. Like you can only heal so much within yourself by yourself. And then you're only going to heal relationship things when you're in that relationship container. You're only going to heal things in ceremony. You're only going to heal things with a coach, with a this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What pops up for me is the phrase, "You're my other half," and it's like,
Yeah.
What we can maybe toss that one out.
I
That
know
would be
what you
good.
mean, though. It's like I like to think of it. It's like it's the perfect complement because then it's not like, oh, I
Holes.
need you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's two holes. It's the
Mm-hmm.
perfect complement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, what else? Like,
You want to do some breath work to get into the flow?
oh, yes, that's exactly what
Awesome.
we need to do. I'd love to.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah. So we'll just do like a round of Wim Hof. Have you done Wim Hof?
Mm-hmm.
For
Yeah.
those of you guys who are watching, I'll explain it. So if you guys are watching, you want to follow along and get into the flow with us. So essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing 30 deep breaths through the mouth. And then you breathe it into your belly and into your chest. So it's going to be like, and then the exhale, you kind of just let it fall out. And then we do 30 of those. And on the 30th one, you breathe it in fully and hold it for a couple of seconds. I like to do like 5 seconds. And then you exhale all the air. And then when you sit and you have no air in your lungs, you're just going to sit there until you start to feel your body. You're going to feel like a tugging in your diaphragm muscle. And then that's when you breathe in fully and just hold it for about 10 seconds. And then you go back to normal breathing. Let's get into it.
In through the
Go ahead.
nose?
I usually do in through the mouth because
Okay.
when I do it in through the mouth, it's like you can get a lot more air. Through the nose, like it's important to breathe through the nose like all the time. But when we do the Wim Hof, I like to do it through the mouth because you can really like fill up even more.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. In 3, 2, 1, go. Fully inhale. And let it go. And just hold. I love this.
Wow, that was lovely. You can just feel the blood and the thoughts, the blood rushing into my brain and then the thoughts leaving.
Yeah. So beautiful. I always love it because I always feel like when I like, especially first thing in the morning, like the first round I do, it's always like this, like I'll be laying there with no air in my lungs and I can just feel and see my energy just like coming into these sacred geometrical patterns and just really like balancing out. And like all the holes in my aura just
It's a huge change of energy, especially at first thing in the morning. I'm with you on that. You mentioned, dude, certified health nut.
I love him.
Yeah, there's that. I actually discovered him through that video. Maybe you've seen it. Elliot Holst did a collab with him.
Yeah.
That one by Venice Beach, I think.
Yeah.
It's like how to release DMT. And the day it came out, I saw it and was just like, this is amazing. And have done that video hundreds of times.
I love that one. Speaking of that, you want to do the breathwork, the Bastrika emergency breathwork?
Sure.
And then for those of you guys who are watching, this next breathwork that we're going to do is very good for, it blasts your chakras open and it blasts your energy up and balances you. But it's also really good for releasing stress and anxiety. Like if you're in the middle of the day and you're really tight and tense, you take a minute to do this and you're back. So we're going to take a deep breath in through the nose and then we're going to breathe it out through our mouth like a lion's breath, like, and then we're going to come back up and then it's going to be like through, you're going to be pumping the belly and breathing in through the nose. And it's going to be like, and we're going to do about 30 of those. And then right when we get to the 30th one, there's this muscle. It's called like, if you've ever done Kegels before, It's like that perineum muscle, like in between your anus and your sexual organs. It's like the root lock. So we hold that, and then you're gonna breathe fully in, and then hold it for about 5-10 seconds, and then you're gonna let it out.
Woo!
You ready?
Yeah, I'm gonna mute my mic so you can hear you breathing instead of us like.
Okay.
But I'm doing it with you.
All right.
All
3,
right.
2, 1. Hold, inhale. Focus on the third eye. Woo! It's better than coffee.
It is better than coffee. Woo! I'm feeling good.
Me too.
Do you drink coffee?
You know, I try to, but my body hates it, so I don't. Like every time I drink it, it throws me off.
Did you for a while, like growing up, or did you kind of miss that wave?
Like I remember like a couple of years ago, I used to do like, especially when I was touring, I would do bulletproof coffee every morning.
Mm-hmm.
And like at the time it worked for me, but I think, I don't know why, but like now I feel like maybe all the breath work and all like the raw foods, like as alkalized as I've become from all the work that I've done, it feels like the acidity of the coffee just does not jive with my body. And like my body's always like, hey, no, get this out of me. And I'm like, okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'm feeling that way too. Like, have you ever ridden on a scooter, right, without shoes on or something, and like you're vibrating on the road, and it's like, and then you get off and you like feel that like leftover vibrational feeling that's like kind of lingering. I almost have a feeling like that pop up nowadays when I'm drinking coffee, and I'm drinking less and less of it. It's a very subtle version of that. It's not that extreme, but I just feel like how it is pulsating through my body. And I've never been a huge coffee drinker, usually like 1 cup a day. And now I'm down to like half a cup a day. And I can just see myself naturally in a non-judgmental way being like, man, I love this coffee, but it's not for me right now. I love this coffee.
One thing that comes to mind is like when we start to do a lot of breath work and like get on our path and on our purpose, and we're eating healthy and everything's starting to align itself, we naturally flow and have the energy to do the things that we do. Our adrenals are balanced, and those are like the glands on your kidneys that release cortisol and release hormones. And what happens when you drink coffee is it shoots your cortisol up. It shoots your like, it's almost like it's a very yang substance. It's a very fiery substance. So like I find that whenever I drink coffee, like if I don't drink coffee, my energy is very balanced throughout the day. And then eventually at the end of the day, it's more like relaxed and yin. But when I drink coffee, it's like, phew, and then it almost like, it sucks your energy out because it uses up all that energy, and then it kind of comes back down. And I feel like the reason why a lot of people end up drinking coffee is because they are chronically tired or chronically malnutrition or something along those lines, and their bodies are at an energy deficit. So the coffee makes them feel alive. But if you don't have an energy deficit and you're balanced, the coffee just like, whoa.
Right. Dude, that makes perfect sense to me. And so many people are coffee dependent and caffeine dependent.
Yeah.
And you don't even notice it really until you stop drinking it, and you're like, oh man, I'm really depending on this. And that's more or less been my relationship with caffeine. Like I've had this sort of voice or feeling saying, okay, you can enjoy it as much as you want and love it. And then if you ever feel like you're becoming dependent, then that's when it sort of like clicks on, like, okay, maybe take a few days off, sort of thing.
Yeah, I find that that's another reason why I don't like to drink coffee, because like if I start to drink it, like even after 3 days of drinking it, I can start to feel my body like being like almost like that addictive like dependency, and I just don't like to do that with things. So, well, because I've done it so much in the past, like addicted to this and that and that and that, and I feel like I don't want to have that sort of a relationship with anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, last night my partner Sarah was talking, or we were talking about addiction, and she was just phrasing how addiction is just a feeling. Because the question was a genuine question that prompted this was, does anybody really enjoy the taste of alcohol? That's what started this.
Mm.
Like really, like people say, oh, I love the taste of alcohol. And then it's like, well, do you really, or you love the feeling maybe afterwards because it's maybe filled with
Numbing
some
you.
sort of and it's like, well, you could say like similarly, oh, I love working out, but really like it's uncomfortable and you know what it's doing. It's actually building strength and healing yourself through
Mm-hmm.
putting in resistance. But then it's like place that into the coffee and place that into alcohol and what it's doing. Like, do you actually enjoy the taste of alcohol? Are we that like warped as a society that it's just we override that we don't need this substance and we do it because it's cool? Is it, are we
Mm.
that far off? Like, I don't, who actually enjoys the taste of alcohol?
I think it's ultimately, like, this is just my uh, perspective and opinion on it, but I feel like it's ultimately, it's a it's a couple different things. Maybe it's like a societal thing, like all your friends and everyone in your circle's drinking, so you end up
Right.
drinking, or maybe it's a way to cover up your trauma and numb out the feelings you're feeling, or maybe it's like you said, we're how do we get so far off? I think that's ultimately because like we're so societal and we're so in these concrete jungles that we're literally disconnected from earth, and being disconnected from the earth, we're disconnected from our bodies and the natural flow of our bodies and nature and everything, because everything's connected. We're almost like have created this like dream where we're like, okay, we're humans, we do these things, this is what we do, all that other stuff doesn't exist.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Another thing
think.
that comes to mind is one thing that's helped me sort of uh, like look at my relationships with things, because I used to like have a kind of a blurry definition of what addiction is, and I'm like, oh, am I addicted to this? Am I addicted to this? Am I addicted to this? What Paul Chek talks about that's really helped me is an addiction is any repeated behavior that does not produce the results that you want. And then I started to use that and really digest that, and I started to realize that a lot of the things I thought I was addicted to weren't actually addictions. Because you think about it, you could say food is an addiction, and there are definitely people who have an addiction to food. But if you're happy and healthy and you love food and you enjoy food and it produces results that you do want, that's not an addiction. That's just love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's sustainable. Where
Mm-hmm.
does, I mean, the word sustainable comes to mind right away for me when it comes to um, my personal relationship with food over the years. Um, that could be an interesting topic to go into because I know you've done a lot of research on food and finding food that's more alkaline and actually has nutrients,
Mm-hmm.
um, and just our relationship with it as a whole. Like I've definitely had my spirals in this life with overeating and
Oh, me
late
too, brother.
night
Me too.
craziness. And that's even led more or less directly to sleep apnea, or not sleep apnea, sleep paralysis,
Mm.
waking up and not being able to move. And I was like, okay, this is a sign from the universe that you're out of balance and we're forcing you to look at it. It's like, here's the mirror right in your face. You can't move your body. You have to look at inside yourself because you're not allowed to move for a second. You're in timeout. Like
Yeah,
figure this
exactly.
out. Which what a cool thing. Like the body in that, to give it some context, this was in college. I just got out of line, out of balance for my fitness regimen. I was super, super dialed in, like down to the single calorie, like crazy stuff.
Uh,
Like I went down that rabbit hole in college.
I've been
And
there too. I was there at like fucking 16.
bro, you're, well then you'll think this is great then. So yeah, after trying to live that life over a long period of time, it obviously didn't really work. And it started to spiral where I'd just be out. I'd go and get like a whole pizza and cookies and all sorts of stuff and just eat every night because I wouldn't really eat during the day. And it just became a a spiraling thing. And then it sort of climaxed with sleep paralysis, where the universe was like, yo, something's really wrong. Like I didn't even think things were really wrong because I was in my own bubble, just like trying to be fit and do the right thing. And this is normal. Like I didn't even know anything was out of normal, really,
Mm-hmm.
until those bigger things started happening. Like, whoa, like something's going on here. I have to Google this. Who do I talk to? What's going on?
Yeah.
But yeah, that sort of led to a deep lesson on sustainability for just life habits in general. I'm like, whoa, I really let that one sink in. Like it can't be this 4-week thing where you like 4-week thing for what? Like sure we can sprint at something for a little bit, but sustainability has got to be something for me to take into consideration.
Yeah, because then you think about sustainability and you think about, I feel like food is a big thing for people, like we were talking about, and like just in the general world. And I feel like the whole like dieting, or like you said, sprinting for 4 weeks towards a certain goal with your fitness or your nutrition, it's almost like the more we try to go to an extreme, like, oh, I'm going to go carnivore, I'm going to go vegan, I'm going to do raw vegan, I'm going to do this diet, I'm going to go keto. The more we try to do extremes, the more we will do this and kind of lean too far this way. And then something will happen where like, oh shit, I've been eating keto for 4 years and now my liver's backed up and I'm not pooping and all this stuff's wrong. And then we're like, okay, I'm going to go vegan. And then you start to yo-yo and then you do this. But then the sustainability piece is about, you know what? I like to eat keto food sometimes. I like fat and protein. I also really like vegan food. I really love raw vegetables and all this. And it's all about what I've learned with food and nutrition, like through my journey of binge eating and going through all these different diets and all this craziness. I've learned that it's not about choosing a dogma and sticking to it, because we are harmonic systems as human beings. And there's always going to be something different. If you had a really stressful day, if you did a Spartan race or you did some really hardcore physical activity, your body more than likely is going to want a lot of protein and fat to rebuild itself. But if you just go to a meditation retreat and you're just sitting there, your body's not going to be able to handle all that meat, and it's just going to want light food. So it's all about, for me, asking what's present, like what is my body asking for? And then that piece really lies in like understanding and having a deep relationship to your physical cues and like the animal that is the human body, and like having that deep relationship not only with your soul but with your body, and then knowing what your body's asking for based on how does my skin feel, what is my skin telling me, what is my moods telling me, what is my gut telling me, what is my poop telling me, and it's really just learning about how to listen. But it's not like listening like me listening to you. It's a different kind of listening, you know?
Mm. When did that listening start for you? Like if you were to back up a little bit in the story of Joshua Wilson, like when did those that inner knowing and inner awareness start to open up for you?
Honestly, it wasn't until I took mushrooms when I was 18, the first psychedelic experience I had, which was really funny because I was on tour at the time and we were in Dallas, Texas, like downtown Dallas, on a Friday night, and we took mushrooms in the van, and it was pretty wild. It was fun though. But after that, it really blasted me open. And then I started to meditate every day. And I feel like ultimately you can't start to listen until you place yourself in a position and a space where you are trying to listen or attempting to create that awareness. So meditation, breathwork, psychedelics, plant medicine, all these different things. It's like we have to consciously choose to go in within ourselves and start to listen and learn how to listen. But maybe it's not a conscious choice and you have a crisis happen and you have a disease or this thing happens or this thing happens and you're like, oh shit, I have to do something. And then it's always like the universe is either going to force you to listen and force you to dive within yourself, or you're going to find it. It's like I can't remember the Japanese terms, but there's two ways to ultimately grow. There's the crisis where something bad happens and you're forced to, or there's the insight and you do it by your own accord. And I very much, after having lots of crises, I very much choose to grow and work on myself and dive within myself on a daily basis, and choose to catch the whispers before the universe is slapping you in the face.
Right. so many awesome things come up for me hearing that. Like Mujiji,
Yeah.
I think that's how maybe I say his name. He has a teaching he shared once saying, when you feel the resistance coming on, it means you're on to something. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's great. And I've said a few times recently, when I get triggered nowadays, and I'm much more aware when I feel my energy state shift, it's like, oh, like good. This is a good thing. This is great. Like I've almost trained myself to be like, word, this discomfort, this resistance, this is good. I can have a chance to heal something and learn something. Like
Mm-hmm.
word, I'm almost excited.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I'm trying to think what else came to mind. Eckhart Tolle came to mind of with those two different paths of waiting for crises or the insight. He has a quote that's like, acute suffering is a great catalyst for change. And
Yeah.
I would guess most people end up having to force to be changed, like they're forced to change. And I agree with you. I'm good with the suffering. I'm good. I feel like I've done it enough to myself to now prioritize when I see the insight and I know the insight to take a step towards it rather than to ignore it and then fall more out of alignment and then go down the trail. What's that commercial? It's like don't end up in don't end up in a roadside ditch after all these little decisions of you disregarding your knowing, your intuition. And then yeah. Uh-oh, did I lose you? Maybe the phone died. Let me pause this real quick. Josh!
I don't know what happened.
All good.
We're good. We're back. We are back in action.
All good. There's this beautiful still shot of you. It was just like, it was great.
That's funny.
Bro, talk to me about like the inspiration for things like legacy and grandkids. Like, how do you leverage yourself to, if you feel down or there's your energy state is shifting, other than turning to maybe specific things like physical activities, breath work, exercise? Are there certain simpler, maybe more like visualization, or if you want to go into like journaling? I know you talk about automatic writing.
I love automatic writing.
That's tight. Yeah, I guess I was just thinking before the call, like, what gives me that energy that gets me back to my true self? And for me, when I think about something as simple as like do it for your grandkids, it helps me get out of my own way and be like, yo, you're
Ooh,
gonna
I
die.
like that. I like that.
Yeah, and it's like, what kind of person do you want to be known as? Like, and it makes me step into a realer part of me really quickly by feeling that. So I'm not sure what that might bring up in you for.
Well, could you maybe rephrase the question a little bit?
Yeah. I guess then, like, other than the obvious tools, like breath work is incredible to get present and grounded. Um, Maybe I'm kind of getting into visualization. Like, what is sort of the thoughts you're saying to yourself to like just cheer yourself on to
Like in a
what is
down,
that
like when
dialogue?
things are not
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, like what's that dialogue to get you through those hard times? Is it thoughts, or is it just start breathing, start journaling? Like,
For me, I feel like the first thing that comes to mind is when things like if I'm in like a really bad mood or something has come up and I've got something to work through, some emotions are going on, I'm really tired, something is not balanced. My first thing that always comes to mind, something that my soul always shares with me, is sometimes the best thing that you can do is not shift your state, is not try to get out of the hole. It's to dig to the bottom of the hole. Like if you feel like shit and you just woke up and you didn't wake up at your alarm and you're not doing your stuff, you didn't do your morning routine, nothing is going right, and you feel not good within yourself, sometimes I'll fucking lay in bed for an hour and just feel that and just allow myself to sink into it. And then eventually I open my eyes and it's gone and I'm good and I'm back. So
Mm,
ultimately, the biggest thing for me is like surrender. Like sometimes
mm,
the universe will have you in a situation where like you're trying to do your breath work, you're trying to do all these things and
yeah.
balance your state and like keep going forward. But sometimes the universe is like, hey, slow the fuck down, surrender, and just connect. Because sometimes, even in breath work, even in journaling, even in this, even in that, I found myself, even with those tools, we can use those tools to, one of my favorite mentors always said, um, a way that you find yourself eventually becomes a way that you lose yourself.
Mm.
So,
Tell me about that. That's cool.
so like for journaling, for example, like I find myself, if I get into a track where I'm journaling every single day for months and months and months and months and months, and I'm diving deep and I'm healing and I'm connecting and all these different things, eventually journaling will be a tool for me to get lost in my head and I'll get further away from myself. It's like that which is protective in the short term can be damaging in the long term. Let's use coffee for an example, because we were talking about coffee. Maybe you use coffee for a week when you're working a lot to get through that. But if you start to use coffee every day for a year, now you have adrenal fatigue. Now your gut is thrown off. Now your blood is acidic. Now this is wrong. So everything can be a medicine or a poison. That's journaling, that's breath work, that's this, that's that. And it's all about creating that balance and really allowing yourself to surrender to the moment and be in the moment, no matter how uncomfortable the moment is. One more thing.
Mhm.
Shinzen Young, he's like the Zen master. He talks about suffering equals pain times resistance. So if you have some
Mm.
pain up at the surface and you're resisting it, that's where the suffering comes in. But if you stop resisting it and you surrender, it's just pain.
Oh, yeah. And you're gonna feel it, and then it'll pass.
Exactly. Everything's temporary. So sometimes the best thing you can do instead of shifting your state is diving into that and letting yourself fall apart and letting yourself feel everything that comes up.
Hmm. So, what just came up for me is I've been working through I think it's like one root trauma that I experienced that like I felt like I've healed deeply in a few moments, but clearly since I'm still talking about it and things subtly pop up over time, it still lingers. And
Mm-hmm.
a part of me is almost irritated because it's like, wait, this is still going on. Like I thought we got this, and then it makes me be like, wait, so was I like off on my healing? Like I thought I had that moment of boom. And so I was talking with my friends, I think it was just yesterday, saying how the past, healing from the past, um, he was sort of throwing out a perspective like, what if the past, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, I was just like chewing it over because it was fun. Like, what if the past um, is always living inside of us, and it's just a part of you that you have to make peace with? Um, yeah, maybe as simple as that. Like you carry everything with you. You just have to make peace with it. And I think I'm 50-50 on whether or not I agree.
Yeah. I mean, there's a part of me that says yes, because ultimately we have to make peace with things in order to move through them and release them. But what else comes up for me is, at least in my experience and in my journey, what comes to mind is ayahuasca. And I've sat with ayahuasca a few times now, and there will be one thing I've experienced is like I'll heal something in ceremony, and I'll feel something, and I'll understand something, but it will come back up in my life when I go back into my life, because anytime I do like a journey or a breathwork situation, sometimes I'll heal something right then and there, and it'll be time to heal it, and it's gone. Other times I'll see it and I'll have that experience of clarity, but then the universe is like, okay, now you saw this, now do the work, now actually learn the lesson.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that must be what more the camp that I'm in right now with this particular healing that I'm going through, where it's just an ongoing thing, like years, I guess, of just like some big moments. You're like, boom, I really just like dropped into this full on surrendering, forgiveness, just feeling it all out. so objectively and open arms, acknowledging, accepting. And then when it pops back up, like again, I guess just now, what I'm working through is not judging if it does come back up in subtle ways.
Yeah, because the thing is, when we say, like you said, say you do heal something and you do have that completion moment, the universe is going to throw it back in your face and see like, hey, remember this? Did you actually heal this? Is this actually something you've worked through? And if you can look at it, like what comes to mind is I used to have a huge fear of getting cancer. Even though I'm super healthy and I've done all these things, I used to be terrified of getting cancer. And almost like in your reality, the synchronicities of getting cancer would come towards me. And then it got to a moment where I was able to shift it and heal it. And then they were still there, but it looked like they were moving away from me. And the more you choose to look at it and be like, oh yeah, I remember that, sort of just like in curiosity, it will continue to move away from you. But if you do have that moment and then it starts to move away from you and then you go, wait, I thought I healed that. And then you create that resistance. That's what draws it back to you. And then you start to create this resistance and this, like, it keeps coming back to you. So it's kind of like the negative thought thing. It's not about don't think negative thoughts. Don't think negative thoughts. It's about being like, interesting. Those thoughts are at the surface, because then you're not grabbing them. You're allowing them to simply pass. So in this case, maybe you did have that clarity. You did have that moment of healing and resolution. Now it's about looking at it and watching it, being like, oh yeah, I remember that old pattern. I remember this old thing. And then just allowing it to have its own life and just dissipate. Because the more it's almost like, another thing that comes to mind is our ego is this ideaplex, right? It likes to know who it is and create an identity based on the past. Exactly. So when we heal certain things, especially if it's an old, deep-rooted trauma, our ego will build an identity around that, even if it's not for our greater good. Like, even if like, oh, I can't even think of an example, but yeah, if we have some certain sort of trauma that we've lived with for a long time, our ego will be connected to it and sort of like attached to it, because it's how we've been identified for a long time. So even if you do heal something big like that, the ego is going to want to grab it again, because it's like, no, that's who I am, even if it's not for our better good.
Mm-hmm. Less grabbing.
Less grabbing, more allowing and watching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. When I think back on an older version of myself where I really was caught in my ego in a very deep way of habitually just disassociating from my true self.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny, like relating it back to coffee, even like that feeling in my stomach of out of alignment was so normal that until I got through that chapter of my life, it's like, whoa, I used to feel like this way all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I feel like discomfort arise for a few minutes nowadays, I'm like, yo, you remember like you spent 3 years like that?
Mm-hmm.
Like 3 years. Like imagine what that was doing to your body, like how, hard it was to exercise because you had no energy. And like, that was like, you carried that around. And it's hard to get that perspective sometimes when you're in those just heavy energetic states.
For me, what I've learned how to train myself is, whenever, like now, if I have a low moment, I always I always remember, like, I think back on my past, and like I think about like, hey, remember 2 years ago when your gut was literally in shambles and your stress response was out of whack and you had no energy and your body was falling apart? Remember that? This is nothing compared to that. Because every time we hit a low point, it's actually, we're always doing this, right? But it's like, it's like this. So the low points are periodically higher points, and the low point we're at now is higher than any high point back then.
True.
But
Yeah,
it always comes back around. We go into the light, and then we have that clarity, and then we go back into the darkness. But it's not the same level of darkness that we were in before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's always just,
yeah, we learn a tool or a profound lesson, and then it's like, cool, now I got that one in my bag of tools of perspectives or nuggets of
Yeah, you got
truth.
the medicine bag.
Medicine bag, yes. Are they selling those nowadays? The medicine bags? Except there'd be nothing in them.
I know, right?
Oh
That's a
man.
knee slapper.
So, dude, what else do you feel called to talk about right now, if anything? Um,
Is there anything you feel called to bring up or ask or anything like that, or anything you feel called to talk about?
um, I think labeling is a big one, which um, is in what is similar to an ego conversation. When I was in the chapter of being in a band, I filtered my entire identity through that lens.
Oh, me
Um,
fucking too, dude.
so it's interesting, right? So every conversation was, "Hi, I am this of this. I am John of this," and I noticed over time, and especially looking back on it, how through all those thousands and thousands of conversations, I would be so distant from who I actually was because I would just be playing a character that I just kind of built
Yeah.
for myself to live and die by. What a roller coaster that can be. Even when the highs are good, it's like, well, then there's the lows, right? You're just ping ponging.
Mm-hmm.
And so nowadays, I'm really where I feel resistance usually nowadays is when my ego wants to label myself. It's like, yo, what are you? Are you a musician? Are you a teacher?
Oh
Are
my
you
God, I struggle with that. I was challenged with that for a long time. For a long time, like, no, I'm a coach. No, I'm a this. No, I'm a that. Oh no, I need to be this. No, I need to be that. And it's like, what I'm learning how to do is letting the ego run its games, but not fighting with it. Letting the dog run on the leash, and then eventually it calms down.
Mhm.
It's like, it's okay to build a character. Like I could say, oh, I'm Josh. I'm a breathwork healer, right? But that's not that's not who I am. That's just the doing. The ego, or like, I like to think of it like a video game, right? So like,
Yeah.
one thing, I used to play World of Warcraft a lot as a kid.
Oh, me too.
Yes. So imagine, like, I had this orc shaman that I played for a long time. So that was my character. I was a shaman. I was this level. I had this gear. I had all this stuff, right? This was my character. This is my role playing character. So when I would log into the game, I was this guy. This is what I did. Oh, people would be like, hey, Josh, you're this, right?
Oof.
So I like to think about, the life we live now the same way. So like, ultimately, I am, as much as you are, as much as everyone is, we are eternal souls. We are source energy. We are just this consciousness energy. And these physical incarnations, Joshua Wilson is just this avatar. It's my character I'm logging into. So yeah, I'm Josh Wilson, but I'm not attached to it. But it's also trying to be removed from your ego and trying to be like, I don't attach to my ego. That's in it of itself is an ego game. You're being in your ego by saying, I don't have an ego. So it's about, for me, it's about realizing, like, okay, I am Joshua Wilson. People do see me as this breathwork guy. So this is who I'm going to own. I'm going to own this character, but this is not the character. I'm not this character.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about this life, this earthly existence that we're in right now is this divine play. Imagine if you went to a play and this guy got on stage and the first thing he says is like, hey guys, I don't really like this role. This isn't who I am. Like, it's like, what the fuck? It's like, no, play your fucking role. This is what you're doing. This is what source energy has incarnated you as. So just play your role.
Slow motion this side.
Mm.
Oh yes.
You know?
That resonated. Like the way you deliver that resonates for sure.
Beautiful.
It now reminds me of this guy, Aaron Abke, on YouTube. He's been sharing a lot of spiritual content. And he described it sort of a similar analogy that also resonated, describing the ocean, how the ocean, if you want to use that as a metaphor for source energy, universe, God, whatever you want to call it. The ocean's doing its thing. And then there's these little waves that separate themselves and say, I'm a wave, you know,
Yeah.
I'm a big wave. I'm a low wave. I just crashed. Oh, you get to keep going and I don't. Aw. And da 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 da. But then there could be that realization if a wave is ever so lucky to be like, oh, I'm part of this ocean. And then without the ocean, I'm just
Nothing.
yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
something like
So
that.
for me, it's about like just own the role you're playing. Like have fun with it. And like when you played World of Warcraft, you were fucking in it. You were that character, right? So like it's about doing that, but it's like bringing this playfulness and this joy and this almost like divine laughter to it. Like if someone's like, "Oh, Josh, this content you made is so amazing." I'm never like, "Thank you. I made this content. Josh made this content." Yes. It's more like, "I appreciate it. I'm glad you resonated with it." Because it's ultimately we are playing these roles, but that role that we're playing is not doing anything of what it's doing. It's just a conduit for source energy. Like the content I make, the conversation I'm having with you right now and what I'm saying, it's not Josh. It's coming through Josh, but it's not Josh. So it's like the more you can play your role without being attached to your role, like if you get on stage and you're like, I'm this guy, I'm in this band, and then you own it and people say like, you did an amazing job, and you're like, yes, I did do an amazing job. That's like, I'm a big wave. It's like, it's more about like, oh, you did an amazing job. It's like, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's
Yeah,
like
I see.
the piece is humility.
Yeah,
It's all about the humility.
is that a skill?
I'd
Oh,
say
did I
so.
lose you? Okay, cool. I thought I just paused for a second. Yeah,
Oh no.
yeah, a practice for sure. Because like, yeah, like going back to the do it for the grandkids sort of mentality for me, that really like snaps me back into my center as one of the many tools. Right now, I feel like journaling isn't really my tool. I've done a lot of journaling,
Yeah.
and it's like, man, like I love journaling, but it is just kind of like feels forced right now. Even though I can write 5 pages like I maybe did this morning. Um, but it's just kind of like fluff right now. It's not there right now, even though I'm producing.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like I went through a similar spurt where I was journaling. Like back here, I have like 10 full journals from like a year and a half of journaling and like working through shit. But now, like for the last like month or so, I was going through a period where like my higher self was like, hey, journaling's not really working for you right now. Journaling's just getting you lost in your head. And then my ego was attached to it. I was like, no, I have to journal 3 pages every single morning. I have to do this. But I would
Right.
get through a half a page and I'd be like, I'm already centered. I've already done a lot of this work to where
Ah.
I don't need to dive into myself like that in the same way
Mm,
anymore. I still
mm,
use journaling whenever it resonates and whenever like I need to journal about this. But now for me, my morning routines look like I wake up, I take a cold shower, I drink some
mm.
water, I drink some wheatgrass, I go out into the sun and I put my feet into the earth, I do my breath work, I meditate, I make sure my aura is cleansed. Maybe I'll work with some plant medicine, and yeah.
That feels so good.
Yeah.
Mm, mm.
It's like the journaling has gotten you from here to here, but now that you're here, where are you trying to go?
Right. And I just nowadays I'm thinking a lot about my energetic state. Um, I mean, it's great to be more aware of it. My day to day, hour to hour, 10 minute to 10 minute state I'm in. And I really love that visualization tool. Another visualization tool I like to help recalibrate my energy, so to speak, is I imagine my mentors or someone I admire in the room. And then
Mm.
I'm like, whoo, like, yep. Like
I'm
if
going to use that. I like that a lot. Thank you, brother.
you're welcome. It's one of my favorites, honestly. Um, it's like almost as if, yeah, you just like play role play and you say, okay, if these 10 people were in the room, you could list off whatever 10 people. And I was sitting on the couch, like getting lost on Instagram. They'd be like, bro, like you can move on to your next activity. And they probably do it in a laughing way, like, come on, bro, you got, what are you doing? Like, let's go.
Yeah.